In 1961, the first wave of baby boomers were coming of age. Radio was king, and America's #1 disc jockey was Dick Biondi.
This is the Wild-Eyed Australian Dick Biondi.
Dick Biondi is a unique force of nature.
Roses are red, violets are blue. If I don't read a commercial, the boss says I'm through.
Who is that? Is he on something?
Twisting down the dial and going from the low numbers to the high, and you passed that voice of his, you had to go back. We had never heard anything like it.
The village idiot, the supersonic spaghetti slooper, the nut.
He was the original radio rock star who could fill huge gymnasiums and ballrooms and auditoriums, who could be airlifted in by helicopter, who would amass so many people they would tear his clothes off as if he were the rock star.
He is the real deal. He is certainly one of the great representations of what radio was all about.
He introduced listeners to Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, the greats.
Dick Biondi was the first disc jockey to play a Beatles song. Dick was playing them 9 months before they went on Sullivan.
He's helped so many people's careers, especially here in Chicago.
In 1963, we recorded Surfer Girl, and then Mike said, why don't we take it to Dick Biondi? They played it, and people called in on the phone and said, we love that record.
He was always a champion of R&B music. He played music by black artists that not a lot of people were playing.
He was one of the first guys to play Little Richard's records. I went up to Richard and I says, Richard, remember Dick Biondi? He said, of course I do. If it wasn't for Dick Biondi, there would be no Little Richard.
Everything that was going on in your world was filtered through your favorite radio station, your favorite DJ, and that, more than anyone else, was Dick Biondi.
There was nobody like Biondi. We listened every single night. We never missed a show. Dick became the voice in our heads. Dick Biondi was the voice in our cars, the voice under our pillows, and the voice that rocked America.
DUI, stick around, we'll have some fun.
Who's there?
Biondi.
Biondi who?
Beyond the blue horizon.
This episode is brought to you by Generate Solutions, your go-to AI experts specializing in empowering commercial real estate companies and environmental consulting firms. As AI is quickly transforming industries and enhancing efficiency, it is important you don't let your business fall behind. At Generate Solutions, we streamline workflows and automate tasks by creating custom AI agents tailored specifically to your business needs. Interested in taking your operations to the next level with AI? Email mfiorante@generatesolutions.com or find us directly on LinkedIn by clicking the link in the bio. On to our episode.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Today it brings me down a path again that I truly love in the sense of documentary films. And we're going to talk about a legend today that was in Chicago and many, many places all over the United States. If you go back and look at the history of this man, and we are with the director of something that's going to be very special coming up called The Voice That Rocked America. And it's about the great I'm going to say it this way because I don't think anyone's ever introduced him this way. Richard Orlando Biondi, which is the great Dick Biondi. And I'm here today with the director, and I'm really happy that you could come on to do this. We're with Pamela Enzweiler-Pulice. Pam is the director of this thing coming up. Pam, what's going on with you, young lady? And thank you for coming in this morning.
John, thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun. I love talking about Dick Biondi.
For sure.
He's so fun and what a wonderful human being he was. Oh my goodness.
You know, you go back to look at this man, and of course, I remember him as a kid myself. I'll tell you, I mean, I was born in 60, but I remember my sister who was born in 55, and we would listen to WLS and just all the stuff and how he would introduce, let's say, like, you know, the Beatles, the Beach Boys. You know, you were invigorated by this introduction, but the world basically wasn't ready for him yet. You know, where my dad would say, shut that car. You know, we only had the AM dial in the old Buick. And he said, shut that. I want to put something else on. Your first recollections of him, is it 1961?
1960, May 2nd, 1960. It was the day that the Prairie Farmer station, which was a legendary station in Chicago, was catering to all the farm community back in the day. Overnight made the switch from the Prairie Farmer to 24 hours of rock and roll music known as the Bright New Sound on WLS. And it was unbelievable because I know the farm community was going crazy. What happened? You know, but all the kids were going crazy because we were so excited to have a 24-hour rock and roll station in Chicago. And especially at 9 o'clock at night to midnight, we had this crazy wild Italian. We had never heard anything like it in our life. And it was just unbelievably, it was so different. He was so unique that all the kids were going crazy, and especially me.
And can you imagine? I mean, now let's face forward to 2012, November 24th. Now, this audience, if we go back in that 1960 audience, is on their phone looking for things, and this man captivated an audience, correct? I mean, he captivated this group of people. Going back to that Prairie station, I don't know if you remember, there was a show on Channel 9. It was called The Farmer's Report with a guy by the name of Orion Samuelson.
Yes.
Was that what that Prairie station was about?
Yes.
Okay.
It was all about, farm reports down at the,
oh, geez.
Down with where we slaughtered the slaughterhouses and what were they called? I kind of forget. The Chicago.
Yeah. I think we've had enough of that,
But it was all about, commerce and the farmers and the recipes from,
sure.
And church music and, all kinds of down home
things. So
the country music. Do you know Chicago was a country music capital at one time before Nashville?
Well, I did not know that, but I remember, of course, let's go back to Channel 9. They had a lot of country theme behind them, radio-wise and television-wise in those days. Because, up until the end of Hee Haw, it was a big thing to have these kind of things for country. He's really one of the original screamers. When we say the Italian, what was that nickname about? Do you remember why that nickname?
It was about this bombastic, loud-mouthed guy just getting on the air and yelling, and he was so excited about everything. He was, especially being on the radio was his dream. So he was really grabbing it and running with it because he loved it, every minute of it. And those guys back in the day, they were just calling out these records, and they had all this little, the shtick that they would do to introduce the record. And Biondi was king of that, believe me.
Right. And what an innovator. Again, this was innovative. This is something new. This is, I wound up watching the trailer. And by the way, before we go even a little bit more forward with this, I want to thank good friends of mine, very good friends of mine, my childhood friend, John Socha and Susan Till. They went to see you. in Elk Grove Village. And the next day, John never calls me really at the one. It was an hour of the day where he never really calls me. We really have conversations in the morning. He goes, "You got to get a hold of this lady. This is something you like to do." And I want to thank both of them because they
I
were
appreciate that.
Yeah, they were really, they loved what you did. I think it was at the Elk Grove Library, maybe
Yes, I
about a
did
couple of
a
weeks ago. So
30-minute preview of the film, and
beautiful. I mean, just
well,
yeah,
it was a wonderful audience over there. 70 people showed
I
up,
can
and
imagine.
yeah, it was just great. And they were two of the people. And he even said, "Yeah, I didn't really want to come tonight, but she talked me into it.
Yeah,
I'm so glad I came."
That's John and Sue's the voice of reason. So yeah. But when I was watching this trailer, I was like, wow, because I want to be prepared for you in the sense. And here you see people like Paul Schaefer, who, of course, later on in life became Letterman's band leader. Robert Feeder, the famous guy here in Chicago. Then you see the legendary Frankie Valli, Presley, Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, even Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys is in the trailer. Bob Surratt, the legendary Surratt, who I've met many a times here in Chicago. The trailer alone, I have to tell you, Pamela, was captivating. You were like, wow, I want to see this. I can't wait till it comes out. And that trailer is only 2 minutes and 56 seconds. So that first impression for you of this man now becomes this lasting impression, correct?
Yes. I mean, when I met
What was the biggest thing about him that got you to the point where like, wow?
He had a heart this big.
Okay.
When I met him, I was 14. I had been listening for about a year, and the summer of 61, I was home with my best friend Joan. She was over. My sister was there with her best friend, and we happened to hear on WLS Dick Biondi's over at the local shopping center, Hillside Shopping Center. And so I begged my dad to drive us over there because I was like, oh my God, I want to meet Dick Biondi. So we run over there, and of course, Dick arrives by helicopter, which is what he did back in the day because he was so popular. Unbelievable. And he was doing a remote at the Hillside Shopping Center, and we stuck around right to the end, and everybody had left. And I was so shy. I was like, I don't know what to say to him, but I want to talk to him,
Yeah.
So we came running over at the end, and he was packing up. He had his man with him, his assistant. They're packing up ready to go, but Dick turned around and saw us coming, and he right away started, "Oh, hi, girls. Oh, it's so nice of you to come out," and blah, blah, blah. "What school do you go to?" And he just took over, and he was the sweetest guy. He was asking all about us. He couldn't have been kinder. And I just was so taken with how sweet he was. I said, you know what? I'm going to start a fan club for him. So I did. And I had a little grassroots fan club for him when I was in junior high school. It was in Villa Park. That's where I grew up.
Right.
And so I used to go down to the station, the WLS station on Saturdays when they opened it up for the kids. And the DJs would be there. Bob Surratt used to go down there and hang out. I probably saw him there, didn't even know it. But I would go down and get my membership cards that Dick signed. He signed them all personally. There was no stamp. This was Dick's signature on there. And then I get my little wallet cards, and I would give it out to all the kids that wanted to join my fan club. And then I started writing a little newsletter, and I would let people know where that Dick was going to be. Let's go see Dick. He's got over at Immaculate Conception High School in Elmhurst.
Wow.
And things like that. So I was just very much, it just changed my life. I mean, because I was kind of a mixed up kid, and I was having some problems at home, and kind of always out looking.
Well, like we all did. We had our moments of, but look at that. This may be, not knowing what the problems were. We don't want to know what the problems were, meaning in that sense. But here, this maybe gives you that, puts you on the yellow brick road in the right way.
Well, it did. He was like a mentor. Absolutely. And he really was a positive influence in so many people's lives. He was always willing to help people. So many artists, he would come. I interviewed Tony Orlando for the film. I got to interview all these great people, as you could see.
Fantastic.
Tony Orlando said, he tells the story of when he was 16 years old, he had his first record, Halfway to Paradise. And his manager said, we got to go to Chicago. You got to meet Dick Biondi. So he ends up going around to some of the other stations in Chicago. And he says, you go in there and the guys are like in suits, you know, and they're like, oh, well, we'll have to look at the board and we'll have to see, you know, we'll see if we, you know, we'll take a look at it. He goes into Dick Biondi and he goes, hey, you want some pizza? Get Tony some pizza. Don't worry, if I like your record, I'm going to play it. And that was Dick. Just the nicest, sweetest guy.
Like you were going to your house. Hey, you want some pizza? Yeah, right.
Yeah, the Italian charm. And you know what? He never took payola. He never. Even it.
Wow.
He did it because he loved artists and he loved the music. And that's why I did this film. Honestly, I've known Dick my whole life. We maintained our friendship. And
when you say
his permission.
Yeah, when you say 1960, on an average, from let's say 1960 till his passing, which I think when was that passing? That was in I think it was in 2023. Right, it was in 23. I mean, till his passing, on an average, if you don't mind me asking you, how many times a year would you keep in touch with this man?
Oh gosh. It wasn't like I'd call him every week. No.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah.
But you know, every couple months I'd be, you know, we'd have to hook up by phone, or you know, I'd go out to see him at one of his remotes or whatever. He was all over. You know, I tried my best to keep in touch over the years. And if he was doing a toy drive, of course I would be there. You know, he was always, every year did his toy drive, and those were just amazing. 36 hours straight he would do his
incredible. Yeah, incredible. You to correct me if I'm wrong. I made the statement about him, and I mean I remember him, but I made a statement once about him because actually I don't know if you heard, but this morning Jobo from B96 has passed away, who was with Eddie Volkman, the son of the great Harry Volkman, the meteorologist. And, you know, Joe Bohannon says that Carbone, I think was the last name, Jobo Carbone said, he goes, hey, our studio was a takeoff. It was an homage to Biondi. He said in our interview, he goes, you know, like everybody was coming to the studio. We tried to make appearances, me and Eddie. But when I heard that, and this was just last night, I was like, wow, I'm going to interview Pam tomorrow morning about this. And I hear this about Biondi. And another weird thing I have to tell you, which has nothing to do with the interview, I have an appointment tonight in Villa Park for travel at North and 83. So I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to play lotto tonight. I have to ask you, he just continued the innovation. I mean, I'm sure during that innovation, because that starts on May 2nd, 1960 at WLS here in Chicago, when you told me about the Prairie thing, were a lot of these directors and producers at these radio stations over the years, you know, that you heard after the fact, hey, Biondi, you shouldn't have said it, or hey, Biondi, you shouldn't have opened up. Did he get a lot of flack from station managers?
Oh, God, yes. Oh, my goodness. He was a rebel.
Right.
And that's why the kids loved him. I mean, he was slurping his coffee on the microphone, and he was telling these corny jokes. And he was just being an idiot, you know, he was just being a goofball. And we ate it up. But yeah, no, he was fired from 25 radio stations, and he was proud of it because he always got hired again.
Yeah.
He was in big demand wherever he went, and he always got high ratings wherever he went. And people loved him. So, but it wasn't an easy life. Let's face it. He was on the move quite a bit.
Exactly. I mean, from probably his first days of WINR to WAMB, whatever. I mean, I saw that. So, but again, the man was in demand. And I think a lot of these radio stations probably said, hey, you know what? What did he do? You know, sometimes after we make a judgment, I could have an argument with you. And then maybe the next day I say to myself, why did I argue with Pam over something so stupid? You know, you go back and look at this. Why did we have this argument? I made another statement about him, and let's see if you think I'm right. I thought he was the Dick Clark of the radio because he put a lot of these people, the Beatles, Presley, Lewis, all these people on the map, the Beach Boys, where you would go on that Dick Clark show, American Bandstand on a Saturday. And sure enough, that thing would take off. Even the great Little Richard that was asked if he remembered Biondi, he goes, absolutely. And it was the absolutely of not just to say it, it was the absolutely of, recognition.
Yes. Yes.
Would you agree that he was the Dick Clark of the radio?
I would agree with you. Yes, I would. Dick Clark was a disc jockey on the radio before he went on to television.
Yes.
And Dick Biondi knew Dick Clark. He knew everybody. He knew Wolfman Jack. He knew Alan Freed, the original guy that coined the term rock and roll. He knew Sam Phillips down at Sun Studios, who started Elvis Presley off. He knew all those guys.
All those guys.
Right. And they worked together, from afar, sometimes close together. I know Dick worked with Wolfman Jack, he did some kind of radio shows with him. But yeah, Dick worked with everybody. So that's when I first decided to do this project, and I had not done a documentary before. This was something I just decided to do. And I called Dick's secretary, Lorraine, and I said, this is funny because I remembered her from when I was a kid. She remembered me.
Wow.
And I said, Lorraine, guess what I'm going to do? She goes, what? I said, I'm going to do a documentary about Dick Biondi. She goes, Pam, do you know what you're getting yourself into? Dick knows everybody. I said, oh God, I know. I really didn't know if I could do it, honestly, because I didn't know anybody famous at the time except for Dick. But I got it done.
Pam, when did it start, this idea? When did it start?
This idea has been in the back of my brain ever since I knew Dick Biondi. I wanted to tell his story since ever. I even had file folders in my, my records of newspaper clippings and stuff. All through the years, I saved stuff about Dick. And it was just a secret little dream. But the last decade of my career, I got into video production and I really loved it. And I started doing some stories about people, like I did a War Brides video, a woman telling how she, came to America and blah, blah, blah. And I love hearing those stories. So I actually met a documentary filmmaker who had her own very first film, a gal named Pat Wisniewski, and she was doing a film called Everglades of the North. Believe it or not, there was an Everglades as big in Northwest Indiana as down in Florida.
Okay.
At one time. So that was her story. It was a great movie. Anyway, we became friends, and one day I just finally spilled my little dream to her, and I told her what I'd always wanted to do. And she'd seen some of my work, and she goes, well, you could do it, Pam. And honestly, a documentary film is not like doing a video. There's a lot more to it. A way lot more.
Yes.
So I didn't really know if I could. I didn't know if I had it in me because I had already been retired and I was taking care of my mom. And but when my mom died a couple of years later, I decided that was it. I was just going to give it a shot.
What year was that, Pam, when Mom passed away?
That was 2023, same year as Dick.
Yeah. That's something.
Wait, I'm wrong. It's not the same year as Dick. Of course not. I started the film in 2014. Mom died in 2013.
So you've been at this since 14.
Sorry?
You've been at this since 2014, correct?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to mention something. I just been part of a documentary on the great goaltender here in Chicago, ice hockey goaltender Glenn Hall, who was from the 50s and 60s. And this documentary for the director named Ryan McInerney, a gentleman that I coached him as a player because I was an ice hockey coach here in Illinois. It took him a good 8 years to finally finish it. And I went to Windsor, Ontario to watch. But I love what you said. What goes into a documentary is unbelievable, and the time and the piecing, and your trailer reminded me so much of what I was just a part of, this documentary on the great Glenn Hall. Where are we at now with this documentary, and how close are we getting?
We are so close. I've actually just gone through the whole process of finishing it, licensing it, and it's going to be released on streaming platforms nationwide in March of 2026.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So I'm actually at the point now where I've got a GoFundMe site. I'm trying to raise just a little bit more money to get it done. It's on my Dick Biondi film.
I see that. I see that.
Facebook website. Sorry.
Right.
It's right on my website, dickbeyondifilm.com, and so is the trailer, and so is that all the information about Dick Biondi if anybody is interested in learning about it or following us. In fact, when you first go on there, a little window will pop up. If you want to sign up for our newsletter and keep abreast of when the film is coming out or when we're having our big red carpet premiere, which I'm talking to your friend and mine, Ron Onesti.
Ron Onesti, and I'm going to be talking to Ronnie on your behalf also, and I'm going to get this interview out to him this weekend so he can see the connection. And he's been a tremendous help to me and a tremendous help to the community, Ron Onesti, over the years, and really, really, he goes out of his way.
He's got a big heart, just like Dick Biondi, and he does a lot for the entertainment business. Unbelievable.
You know, with these two theaters that he has, he brings in some of those oldie acts and even new acts that are just tremendous. So, will this be premiered, you think, at one of the Onesti theaters?
I believe so. We're working on it right now. I don't have a confirmation, but it's in the works. And if anybody wants to know more about it, sign up for our newsletter.
Right. And I'm going to really be involved in the sense of, I want you to know this, of course, promoting this interview today. And I will be talking to Onesti and whatever help you need from me. But I have to tell people, the audience today, these are costs. This is not like Pam went out there with a video camera and says, okay, we're going to put this picture of Biondi, this, put a trailer. This takes time. And like I says, I learned this with the production of this Glenn Hall movie. There's editors' costs, closed captioning, digital quality control, DVD publishing, music licensing. The music licensing alone, like I'm going to ask you today, what's a favorite song of yours that you want attached to our interview? And I really have to watch because I've been hit for copyright just on this small little podcast of mine, So, so you have to watch. Right. It's crazy.
It is. It took me almost a year to get through the licensing process.
I can imagine. I don't know what's worse, that or getting a bar license. Maybe you get that and then you start drinking. I don't know, but it is crazy. I got to ask you, over the years of talking with him, here's this guy from New York, and of course, booking man. When he was born in 32, comes here, and of course he had been other places, comes here in 60. He still was in his late 20s. That helped his
24 years old when 27 when I knew him.
Yeah, and the popularity and that personality he had and everything else. Did he ever have a conversation with you? Because, of course, you were the fan club president.
I was one of several.
Several, yeah. But did he ever have a conversation with you, like, that sit down like me and you are having here today, like, Pam, I remember this, or I can remember doing that. Things have changed. Like maybe me and you would, have a conversation at a Starbucks.
Well, yes and no. Dick, he would love to talk on the phone, but of course he was at work usually when he was doing that, so he wouldn't stay on too long. But we would talk about family, and he would always want to know what's going on in my life, and I asked him about his life, but he didn't get real philosophical. But the day that I called him in 2014 to ask him about doing this story, I was very nervous because I'd never done one before, and I felt like, well, who am I to put myself in there? This is my story about meeting Dick and, having a transistor under my ear as a fan and listening. And I told Dick, I said, I've been on your Facebook page, and I've been looking at all your videos, and you're listening to your sound checks, and remembering those great old days. And I said, I would love to do a story about those days from the fans' perspective. And when he heard that, I believe that's what it was, what triggered him to say, yeah, let's do it. Those were his exact words.
From what you know, Pamela, has anybody else tried to do something about
Yes.
Biondi?
Yes, many people have tried. In fact, John Landecker, who's
Okay.
in the film, he came to, I had a screening when I was trying to raise, I've been trying to raise money for years. So I do occasionally hold these screenings around. I sell tickets. Well, I did one at the Acorn Theater in Michigan. And John lives over there by Michigan City, Indiana. And he showed up. He and his wife came to the screening. And this is right after Dick died. And it was very emotional. Well, I do a Q&A after the film, and John came up on stage with me, and he said to the audience, Bob Surratt and I have been trying for years to get Dick to tell his story. I don't understand it. How come he let you do it? And I said, I think it's because I wanted to tell from the perspective of the fan, and he loved his fans so much. I really believe that's what it was.
You know what? And I got to tell you, Pam, there are people that have come on this little show of mine, and I've had some good guests, I think, over the last 3 years. But sometimes I'll say, "Yeah, I noticed you've never gone on something else." I think with you and it may be somebody like me, it's been the passion that Biondi probably saw in you for what, all the things he did. I mean, hey, it's from the heart, not something commercialized that we're going to put together, get it out in 45 minutes. Even like I said, this Glenn Hall movie, this young gentleman, I think this goaltender saw the passion in this director, Ryan McInerney. There's a line in here that I like.
Passion goes a long way, John. And
you got it.
He had it. He had so much passion for what he did and gratitude. And yes. I did too. Oh my goodness. I have, and you're right. He probably did see that in me.
I'm sure he did, because
I'm sure he trusted me.
Right. Because that's why I asked you that question. From 1960 till his passing, here is this lady, Pamela Enzweiler-Pulice, kept in touch with him. It wasn't, oh yeah, I just want your autograph, play my favorite song, Danny, the Beach Boys, little GTO, and I'm out of here. You weren't that way. You weren't that way. Two things here that I'd like to mention. His ambition was to become the oldest active rock and roll guy, DJ. And I love the line where it says, I'd like to die with my earphones on. Wow. If he was alive now, you think he's still doing it?
Oh yeah, if they would let him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he had an ambition. And I have to tell you, another gentleman that paid homage to him in a late interview, I think before his passing, but he was the mild Dick Biondi. He was an Italian guy. I don't know his real name, and you're going to know who he is, was Casey Kasem. He was the mild version of Mr. Biondi. He had the voice. This voice was this beautiful voice, Kasem.
I don't think he was Italian, though.
You don't think he was Italian?
I don't think so.
Maybe the looks are fooling me. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like he was Indian or something like that. Some kind of, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's interesting. Dick Biondi, when he got fired from Chicago, actually, he says he got fired. He sort of left too. He got mad. He got in a big fist fight with his boss in 1963. And you know what? They said it was over telling a dirty joke on the air. It wasn't. It was about the amount of commercials that were on Dick's show. He was just so upset because his listening audience wasn't getting a good show. They were inundated with commercials because Biondi was so popular. Everybody wanted to be on his show. And he just had it. And so he ended up getting into an argument with his boss. Well, anyway, I'm giving it away. It's all in the movie. And by the way, there's some really fun animation in the film. So
I'm going to be honest with you, Pam. I'm going to attach that trailer. The trailer alone, and I forget the gentleman. It was another good interview that you did. It was a shorter interview than this one. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but even he was captivated. He didn't know much about Biondi. I saw it on YouTube, but he says, Pam, Wow, the trailer alone makes me want to see it. So that trailer is really, putting the focus on this to get that out. So we're thinking maybe after the first of the year, we're going to start to see a little bit more steam with this. We're hoping maybe by February or something, we might see like an Arcada or Des Plaines Theater of Ron Onesti
Well, we're going to
theaters.
try to align it with the release of the film. So we're hoping for March, early March. As I said, I wish I had a date, but
No, and it's understandable.
yeah. But
And
it's all in the works, and I'm so excited. I can't believe it.
well, I got to say two things. Please, I would like you to have you come back for, because I know we're skimming the surface a little bit today about this legend and all these people. Yeah, once maybe when there's a little bit more of which is going to be very soon, where we can make that announcement. And I would love to go on with you again about that. But I have to say something, and matter of fact, everything is aligned in this interview with you. There is a line by you that I love. When I was reading your thing here, you had this in the back of your mind your whole time since you met him. My idol growing up, besides my father, who started this travel agency, but my idol growing up was the great Tony Esposito, a goaltender here in Chicago. And always I wanted to do something. I wanted to see him. If there was a signing, I ran to a signing. I wanted to see him, everything else. And one time I reached out to him and I says, I would like to write a book about you. I know you better than you know you. I told him in a skybox at the United Center. And he turned to me, he says, John, I would love for you to do that, but I'm a very private person. And 2 years later, then he passed away.
Oh.
But so I am so glad that you got this opportunity and you're doing it, because you know what, you had to break out of it, because that would have remained in you forever. But I love what you said,
and
it goes
Dick
back
was
to
a
my
very private person too, and
yes,
that's why he didn't want people doing a film or a book about him. He
right,
was exactly like that.
And you would think with that personality that he wouldn't be, but he was, because Pamela Enzweiler-Pulice knew him. But I have to tell you something. The gentleman you met at the Elk Grove Library and Susan, but the gentleman, John Socha, Susan Till and John Socha's got a line that I used to watch him. We played sports in grammar school. He was in business for many years. He would always say to me, and it comes out in your thing here, your advice to anyone is, if you have that dream, never give up, never. And that's what he always said. So Pamela, I'm glad you never gave up. And I really want to thank you this morning for coming on a conversation with me. We are going to promote. I'm going to be like Biondi now. We're going to promote the hell out of this thing. Let's do this right now. We're going to do this.
I love your passion, John.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to be in touch with you and Ron Onesti. Please feel free, because this was an honor for me this morning to have you on.
Oh, it's my honor. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
To anybody listening out there, if you want a really feel good story, this is people.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful. I could talk to you. If I didn't have to go back to work, I could talk to you for another 2 hours. And we'll
do it again.
No, for sure. We are, as we get closer. We have visited today with the director of the film documentary that's coming up, The Voice That Rocked America, the story of Dick Biondi. We have visited today with Pamela Enzweiler-Pulice, who is going to have this one when it does come out and gets on the ground. It's going to be something to watch, of this legendary DJ. Can't wait. I can't wait. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
In 1961, the first wave of baby boomers were coming of age. Radio was king, and America's #1 disc jockey was Dick Biondi.
This is the wild-eyed Australian Dick Biondi.
Dick Biondi is a unique force of nature.
Rouse are red, violets are blue. If I don't read a commercial, the boss says I'm through.
Who is that? Is he on something?
Twisting down the dial and going from the low numbers to the high, and you passed that voice of his, you had to go back. We had never heard anything like it.
The village idiot, the supersonic spaghetti slooper, the nut.
He was the original radio rock star who could fill huge gymnasiums and ballrooms and auditoriums, who could be airlifted in by helicopter, who would amass so many people who they would tear his clothes off as if he were the rock star.
He is the real deal. He is certainly one of the great representations of what radio was all about.
He introduced listeners to Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, the greats.
Dick Biondi was the first disc jockey to play a Beatles song. Dick was playing them 9 months before they went on Sullivan.
He's helped so many people's careers, you know, especially here in Chicago.
In 1963, we recorded Surfer Girl, and then Mike said, why don't we take it to Dick Biondi? They played it, and people called in on the phone and said, we love that record.
He was always a champion of R&B music. He played music by black artists that not a lot of people were playing.
He was one of the first guys to play Little Richard's records. I went up to Richard and I says, Richard, remember Dick Biondi? He said, of course I do. If it wasn't for Dick Biondi, there would be no Little Richard.
Everything that was going on in your world was filtered through your favorite radio station, your favorite DJ, and that, more than anyone else, was Dick Biondi.
There was nobody like Biondi. We listened every single night. We never missed his show. You know, Dick became the voice in our heads. Dick Biondi was the voice in our cars, the voice under our pillows, and the voice that rocked and rolled us.
DUI, stick around, we'll have some fun.
On top of a pizza, all covered with cheese, I saw my first meatball till somebody sneezed. It rolled off the table.